Today, we're going to dive into a pretty revolutionary idea, one that has totally reshaped how we think about emotional suffering. It comes from a psychiatrist named Bessel van der Kolk, and his whole thing is that when we're in pain, it's not just in our heads. No, it's in our bodies too. But before we get into all that, let me ask you something. Just take a second and think about it. When you get stressed out or anxious, where do you physically feel it? Is it like a knot in your stomach? Do your shoulders tense up and creep towards your ears? Maybe a tightness in your chest? That physical feeling, that's exactly what we're going to be talking about. So, the book we're exploring is called The Body Keeps the Score, and its main argument is actually pretty simple, but it's also incredibly profound. It's that our emotional pain, especially trauma, isn't just a memory or a fleeting feeling. It actually gets stored in our physical bodies, and it shows up in the way we move, how we breathe, and just how we live our lives. Okay, so to really get why this idea was such a game changer, we first have to take a look at how we used to think about healing our minds. You see, for the longest time, the main approach to psychotherapy was all about talk therapy. The idea was that our emotional problems were just problems of the mind, and if you could only talk your way through them, you'd be cured. It was almost like the mind was treated as if it were just floating in a jar, completely separate from the body it lives in. This slide really lays out the massive shift in thinking. The old way of looking at it was, emotional pain is a mind problem, so talking is the cure. But the new view, the one van der Kolk really champions, says, wait a minute, since the pain actually shows up in the body, doesn't it make sense that the cure has to involve the body too? And that brings us to the core metaphor of the book. I mean, how exactly does the body remember all the things the mind tries so hard to forget? This quote from van der Kolk himself just gets right to the heart of it. He wants us to picture the body as this living record, right? A score sheet that keeps a running tally of our entire emotional history, whether we're consciously thinking about it or not. And what does that scorecard actually look like in day-to-day life? Well, it's not some abstract concept. It's right there in the slump of your shoulders, the shallow way you breathe, your restless nights, those stomach issues, or that nagging tension in your neck that never seems to go away. These aren't just random aches, they're clues. To make this crystal clear, let's walk through a specific example. Picture a child who grows up in a home with a parent who's prone to these terrifying fits of rage. Now, what's so fascinating here is how the mind and the body's coping strategies just completely mirror each other. So mentally, the child learns to be meek, to suppress their own anger, just to survive. But look at what the body does. It learns to be frozen, to be incredibly still. It even develops a resistance to big, powerful movements like running, because deep down, it learned to associate that kind of life force, that vitality, with extreme danger. And the end result of all this is what he calls a fear of one's own vitality. It's profound. A person becomes disconnected from their own natural strength and energy because that part of themselves was once seen as a threat. It's like they own their body, but they don't really feel at home inside of it. So if the problem is stored in the body, it just makes sense that the solution has to involve the body too. And this opens up a whole new incredible toolkit for healing. Van der Kolk observes that traumatized bodies are often stuck between two extremes. On one hand, they can be hyper-alert, flinching at every little thing. And on the other, they can be totally numb and shut down, feeling heavy and immobile. The goal of any treatment, then, is to find a way out of those extremes and back to a comfortable, safe middle ground. So for that person we talked about, the one with a coward relationship to their strength, what's the way back? Well, it might actually be through the very things they've avoided their whole lives. Things like kickboxing or karate to feel powerful again, competitive running to feel that spark of vitality, or even something like rhythmic drumming to just assert their right to take up space in the world. The principle here is really simple, but it's so powerful. Healing happens when the body gets to have new experiences that completely and physically contradict those old, stuck feelings of helplessness or rage. It's literally about overriding the past with new, empowering physical memories. Now, those powerful activities are amazing for reclaiming strength, but what about rebuilding a basic sense of safety that maybe was never there to begin with? For people who weren't held or soothed enough as kids, a totally different kind of physical experience is needed. This led van der Kolk's team to create something really cool called a sensory integration clinic. It's pretty much an indoor playground for both adults and kids. And yeah, it sounds playful because it is, but it's also deeply therapeutic. These activities are designed to go way back and help correct a long-standing feeling of being alienated from your own body. They provide those safe, physical experiences that might have been missing early on. Another huge tool in this kit is therapeutically informed massage. For someone who learned that touch was dangerous or that their body was a source of shame, this can be a really profound way to start rebuilding a basic sense of safety and trust in their own skin. Okay, so what does all of this mean for us? How do we actually move forward with this amazing knowledge? Well, here's the really optimistic twist. While it's awful that our past can show up as physical pain, those very symptoms can become our guide. When our minds are stuck, when we're confused, our bodies can actually tell us what happened and what we need to heal. They hold the evidence. This is such a good reminder that real healing isn't just about talking things out. As important as wise words and kind voices are, they're only one part of the journey. To feel truly whole, healing has to include the body, through movement and through safe, reassuring touch. So if there's one crucial thing to take away from all this, it's that we can be healed by so much more than words. We can be healed by dancing, by swaying on a swing, by chanting together, and by safe physical connection. Healing is a full body experience. And that leaves us with a final thought to mull over. We so often think of healing as this hard, intellectual, grinding work. But what if, at its very core, it was something much, much simpler? What if healing could feel less like a difficult argument and more like a long, warm, nourishing hug?